In fact, if we fast forward to the 15th century, bathing and eating in bathhouses were often combined, as noted in the book Clean: A History of Personal Hygiene and Purity by Virginia Smith. By the 15th century, bath feasting in many town bathhouses seems to have been as common as going out to a restaurant was to become 4 centuries later. German bath etchings from the 15th century often feature the town bathhouse with a long row of bathing couples eating a meal naked in bathtubs, often several to a tub, with other couples seen smiling in beds in the mid-distance. While this might seem a little odd at first glance through a modern lens, consider that many people today enjoy soaking in a hot tub or pool with their friends while drinking alcoholic beverages, which is not too dissimilar to these former bathhouse practices, except now usually featuring skimpy bathing suits. Going back to bathhouses, given that many were connected to bakeries in order to use heat from their ovens to warm the water, let's just face it, there was no way one could sit there in the water smelling freshly baked bread and not develop a voracious appetite. And speaking of voracious appetites, given that many bathhouses were not gender divided and featured naked, now clean people having a good time together, it should also come as no surprise that bathhouses were known to be places to go to have a really good time. For those without a non-paid partner, these establishments were also frequently places to find or engage the services of exceptionally good-smelling prostitutes. As you might have guessed from all of this, many church groups looked down on bathhouses for that very reason. For example, consider this excerpt from an 11th century minister known as Burchard of Worms. If thou, being a married man, hast shamed the nakedness of any woman, as, I say, her breasts and her shameful parts, if thou hast, thou shalt do penance for 5 days on bread and water. But if thou art not married, 2 days on bread and water. Hast thou washed thyself in the bath with thy wife and other women, and seen them nude, and they thee? If thou hast, thou shouldest fast for 3 days on bread and water. However, contrary to popular belief, on the whole at this time it doesn't seem as if most church organizations had a big problem with the act of bathing itself, just the perceived immorality exhibited at many bathhouses. For example, 6th century Pope Gregory I is known to have encouraged Christians to bathe regularly, and as alluded to, Muslim and Jewish groups were likewise known to be even more fastidious than their Christian brethren about keeping clean. As for the Christian church in Europe, to solve the issue with a whole lot of nakedness and loving taking place at the bathhouses, it became relatively common for bathhouses to be built by the various church groups themselves near monasteries. The difference between these bathhouses and the others was that they were a whole lot less fun. Specifically, they separated men and women instead of having them mixed together. Further demonstrating that most church organizations did not really have anything against the act of bathing itself, many monasteries actually piped water into their own, sometimes elaborate baths, and even required the clergy to bathe before many events.